Okay, we're recording and unmuting.
Well, I became a patient navigator because my passion has been to actually educate and encourage others that are walking the path of chronic illness and primarily sarcoidosis. And one of the main things I have found is I usually do a FaceTime with my mentees that we work with. And that's because it is so important to put a face on. Many times they have never talked to another sarcoidosis patient or seen another sarcoidosis patient. And I personally can remember how I felt the first time I was in a group with other sarcoidosis patients. So I think that is really important. Some of the key things I've helped them do is find a healthcare provider that is knowledgeable in their area. That's difficult in many areas of the country because they don't have physicians that are knowledgeable about sarcoidosis nearby. I also have helped them find educational materials on sarcoidosis, and I've actually connected some to support groups in their area. And I also have provided info on better ways to communicate with their providers. And probably the number one thing is just being a good listener, just lending a good listening ear. And sometimes that's all they need.
I became a patient navigator because I remember when I was first diagnosed with sarcoidosis, how scared and alone I became because nobody could tell me anything about sarcoidosis. My pulmonologist said I had sarcoidosis and that's all he could tell me. My oncologist said, well, it's not cancer, so I can't help you. My rheumatologist said, well, I think you need a specialist. And my primary care doctor said, it's sarcoid, what is that? And so I was kind of left on my own. I knew I didn't feel good and nobody could help me. So it took years before I could eventually find somebody that could help me. And I remember how alone I felt at that time. So I don't want anybody else to go through that feeling. So that's the first thing I tell people. Well, it's the second thing. The first one is I tell them that the pain or symptoms that they're feeling are for real, because a lot of people tell them it's all in their head. And the second thing I tell them is that they're not alone, that there are people out there like me who feel the same way that they do, and that we can come alongside them and help them work through their issues. So we can help them find doctors, we can help them find information, we can help them find support groups, and most of all, we can just help them by being there for a period of time to walk with them, to listen to them, and to just be a friend in need. So that's why I became a patient navigator.
Hi, I became a patient navigator because I didn't want them to be alone. And my motto is, you are not alone. I also like to work on not just the physical part, but also the mental part, and walk them through the mental aspects, and to let them know it's okay to be scared. It's okay, if you're having trouble mentally, that you can go see a counselor. I'm big on talking. The mental is, I got told by a doctor that the disease is 90% mental and 10% physical. Your brain will tell you, if your brain gives up, you give up. So I really work on that aspect, as well as helping them find doctors and giving them questions to ask the doctors before they even go there.
I became a patient navigator because of my personal experience. I got a promotion at work, and it was kind of cool because I sat next to a person that was also needing accommodations because they were always missing work. And so we bonded over that. And then it turned out we rode the same train home. And so we got to know each other really well. And I'm like, so why are you sick all the time? And he told me, oh, I have sarcoidosis. And I'm like, what? Isn't that a thing they made up for house? And he's like, no, it's real. And so he told me about his experience. And that was actually about 2 years before I got diagnosed. And while I was at work, I had a great support system. As long as I showed up to work most of the time, I had this amazing support system. But when I went out on disability, my support system disappeared. Even my fellow Sarky, he didn't talk to me if I wasn't at work. I couldn't get a hold of him for anything. And so with my diagnosis, even though I knew someone that had it, I felt abandoned and I felt alone. And I just don't want anyone to feel that way. And I have learned that the key ingredient in surviving sarcoidosis is hope. And so I like to help people find hope, however we do that. And I still feel brand baby new as a navigator. I am not the best navigator in the world. But I think that if you have a desire to help people, then you'd be a great navigator.
I became a patient navigator because being in the healthcare field myself, I realized that there wasn't one doctor that you could go to that was going to be your sarcoid specialist per se, because this is a multi-system disease. It doesn't necessarily affect your lungs or your heart or your nervous system. It can affect anything. And a lot of healthcare providers simply don't quite understand that. So having that knowledge myself and having gone through my own journey, like many of my colleagues here, we realized that there's a lot of people out there that are going to be at certain points in their own journey through sarcoidosis, that it was really important to be able to be there for them, to understand where they were in that process, and to jump in and to guide them from where they are now, answer their questions, and to help move them forward. So what I have found is that the individuals that I have talked to come at this from all different levels. Some have the knowledge already and they're already tied in. They might just want someone to talk to about what they're going through. Others are right at the beginning. No clue, no idea, nowhere to go. And not understanding that and feeling that sensation and of not understanding what they're facing, having someone there to be able to move them along, to summarize and understand where they are in their process and to help them move along, I think is really, really important for them. What I have found with the people that I have talked to already is that they like the fact that they're finally talking to someone who has the same condition that they do. And perhaps the biggest thing, now most people say they like to have contact through email, but I have found that having an initial phone call or Zoom meeting with them makes all the difference in the world. And for the most part, for me, they've lasted an hour, 2 hours sometimes, just to discuss where they are and get a good feeling of what I can do to help move them along. Sometimes it's all they need. Just that one conversation gets them on their way. Other times it might take a few back and forths, and a lot of times it might just be a quick email to find out how they're doing. But at least they have someone to come back to and to bounce more questions off as they move along. I think one important thing, though, is if you're considering to become a navigator, you have to have the experience. You have to have the understanding of where you've been, and then being able to understand how you can fit in to move other people along too. It's a great experience.
Okay, so I became a patient navigator because, same as everybody else, but I remember just not knowing what it was. I found out that I had sarcoidosis the day before I was scheduled to have brain surgery. And so the neurosurgeon was going to go into my head and he was going to take out the tumor that they thought that I had. And then when they went and we did an MRI, and he canceled the surgery. And so I never wanted anybody to go through that experience. My wife, she was crying, just tears and tears when I came out of the radiology office and just not knowing. And so I started looking for information about sarcoidosis because he was the first one that had said something to me about sarcoid. And none of my other doctors knew anything about it. And so I just wanted to educate myself as much as I could about sarcoidosis. And so being a patient navigator, I'm able to add my expertise, but also able to add my experience as far as being diagnosed with sarcoidosis. And so, talking with people that when they first getting it, how scared they are, giving them that confidence that they don't have to be afraid. Like you can live with sarcoidosis, and you got to have hope. That's the first thing. You got to have hope and you got to have faith. And so those are my two building blocks that I give everybody that I come in contact with when they first get diagnosed with sarcoid. And so people that want to become a patient advocate, build your platform or build whatever you're doing on hope and faith. And then everything else is just take care of itself.